No, my lawyer said I can't be Stevie Nicks. I'm just a generic, non-specific look-alike.
And we are. Welcome to the generic, non-specific Stevie Nicks podcast. I'm your co-host, Randy.
I'm Anthony, and it's so good to see you all. We're so glad you're here.
It's an exciting day today, isn't it?
It
We have a
absolutely
special
is.
guest.
A very special guest.
Would you mind giving her the proper introduction?
I will. I have to take my glasses off and be vain for this. The pavement of the meatpacking district still echoes with her footsteps. She is a woman who didn't just witness the underground, she excavated it herself. A journalist of the soul, a poet of the velvet rope, the priest of everything. The kind of woman who turned a Tuesday night into a day that refused to end, even as the morning sun forced its way through the seams of the nightclub's double doors. She walked through the neon smoke with Debbie, shared a divine madness with Joey, measured the dreams of Mark, and stood in the shadows with the extravaganzas. She didn't just build a party, she built a world. She is the mother of Mother, an elemental force who birthed the Jackie Factory, the empress of New York nightlife, and a woman who taught us all that you can never have too many Stevies. The divine, the legendary, the one, the only, the co-creator of Night of a Thousand Stevies, Chi Chi Valenti. Welcome to the podcast, Chi Chi.
Welcome, children. I'm here to tell you a very long story.
And
It's
we are
such a
all
dream.
ears.
It's wonderful to be here. I love what you do. And this event was just built on people who just get Stevie on this profound level. So it's a pleasure to be here and illuminate people a bit about knots.
Well, we thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, you are knee deep in preparations for the next Knots, which is just a few weeks away.
And
34th annual? Is that correct?
it's the 34th annual, and we had 2 years that we were off because of COVID. So it's actually our 36th year, but
Wow.
only 34th show, which those numbers are extraordinary. And we didn't have any plan to continue the show this long, but when COVID happened, and then we came back, like a lot of things we were do people want this show anymore? Has life changed? And the outpouring, if anything, was even more, the show was even more needed to help people kind of reconvene and be a tribe again and be on a dance floor. So I think in a strange way, I'm not sure we would have still been doing it if it hadn't been repurposed in that way. I mean, perhaps we would have. It's so hard to say things like that. So I'm so thankful every year that we can still do this and have see the people that we only see once a year, the performers, the audience members flying in from as far away as UK every year,
Wow.
Australia, Ireland, Wales, Spain, all over.
Chi, for
That
anyone who's like, what the heck is a Night of a Thousand Stevies? If there are anyone watching our podcast, how would you sum that up?
It's a love fest that happens once a year in New York and not quite once a year in New Orleans, but as often as we can. And it celebrates for sure Stevie Nicks and her music, but it also celebrates her enormous importance in gay culture, in drag, in performance in general, in Wicca. Um, all of these different kind of branches come together and sub branches like uh, Nordic witches who practice polygamy, as like a sub branch, or um, leather queens who love to bring lace into their outfit once a year. So
can
it really runs the gamut. I guess that doesn't answer what it is. We like to say it's the largest and most beloved Stevie Nicks fan event in the world.
I think that is an accurate description. Uh, and so this is the 36th year, the 34th performance. You started in 1991. So what made you decide, talk a little bit about how you got your start and how that led you to create this amazing event.
Well, I was never kind of aware of Fleetwood Mac's music, as amazing as that sounds, pre Stevie going on her own, because I was more into just other genres of music. And it's also when punk was really like rising and glitter rock and Bowie and other things that were just more interesting to me. But I first heard Stevie solo one night in the Paradise Garage because Larry Levant absolutely uh, loved Stand Back. And it was like it had just come out. And he would, and when Larry liked a record, it was like, you're gonna listen to this record. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what is that? So I actually first heard Stevie in the Paradise Garage. Um, but as soon as she was solo, I really just felt a tremendous affinity for her image wise, the strong kind of divine feminine in it, which was really missing in a lot of culture. The little, well, what we call fish lipping when she would go in with the backup
Yeah.
vocalists, all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah, those specific some of her stage moves. So I became
Hmm.
really interested in her probably at a time towards the late 80s that she had really fallen the most out of favor she ever was, which isn't
Hmm.
that out of favor, but
Sure.
compared to everything that followed, she was less visible. She was less respected. I think the music was still enormous, but a lot of people just thought of her as this part of Fleetwood Mac.
Hmm.
Um, and then in 1989, I went to my first Stevie concert, which was at Jones Beach. The That's where she played here in the New York City area, which just shows like she still does Jones Beach, and it's kind of a unique and wonderful experience. But to not do anything in Manhattan and just do Jones
Hmm.
Beach is very strange.
Yeah.
So my friend and I drove out and there was a tornado descending, of course.
Of
And
course.
and so we're at a beach, the best place to be for a tornado,
Sure.
in the parking lot. And the first of many Stevie miracles that I've witnessed in my life. So the show was going to start at 9, and everyone's just sitting in their cars with the rain pelting down. And for at 15, like 8:45, storms are over. This beautiful moon comes up, and Stevie just
Mm.
goes, everybody goes to their seats. Stevie comes on, does Outside the Rain as her first song, of course. And I was hooked. And the
Love
other
it.
amazing thing that happened was um, we saw Joey Arias was there, Dean Johnson, who were two of the most important figures at that point in club drag and drag performance, but verging on also, really into performance art because what they did was so, there was a lot of craft to it, even when it looked a
Hmm.
little rough around the edges. And they were both there. And I believe also the wonderful Marilyn Monroe impersonator, Jimmy James, who also joined our show for Knots 2. So I'm like, wait, there's something going on. And they were all there simply because they love Stevie. And they both, I knew that Dean had started performing as Stevie at his rock and roll fag bar or the club that preceded it that he did. So I knew that he had done at least one Stevie drag night. And Joey was like, yeah, I think I'm going to start performing like a Stevie song. Like she's so, something like she's so out there that it's perfect for us. In other words, that she had like circled around and was
Hmm.
like epically cool. And which she certainly was to me, but I thought that was
Right.
like a unique perspective. So then the following year, we had just started Jackie 60, which was a Tuesday night themed experimental night, which ran for the entire 90s. And so we were coming up on our brainstorming for our weekly themes, and it was late April, I think, yeah, very late April in 1991. And I said, well, I don't know. There's something about this Stevie Nicks thing because you won't believe who I saw when I was out at the show. So we're like, let's do a Stevie Nicks night. And it wasn't obviously called Night of a Thousand Stevies because it was going to be a one night party.
Hmm.
And it at that time, that was pre-internet as we know it, but I was very involved in the earliest iterations of trying to communicate with other people online. So there were the beginnings of fan culture as we know it now, but it was on Usenet, which you just Google it. I can't even explain
Yeah.
it, but it was so there were all of these fan groups, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of this grew out of Grateful Dead fandom, as so many online fan things did, because they were at it so early and they were out on the West Coast, so it totally makes sense. So there was a group called alt dot Stevie Nicks dot whatever the Usenet I don't suffix was. I don't even remember. And so I'm like, well, let me try posting this thing on that. And that even posting, I mean, everything was like text only, and I think you had to use like Unix prompts, and I was kind of lost, but
Yep.
I was just like, let me just put this up there. So what happened, even though the club itself was still kind of very small and maybe 100 to 200 people every Tuesday, but fantastic people, other club people, performers. It was that kind of place where performers went to see their friends. So what happened was it was the first night at Jackie 60 that besides our Jackie 60 people, this whole contingent of Stevie fans came in who were on the Usenet group. And so they knew the words to every song. I mean, as
Of course. Of
Stevie
course.
fans, they were incredible. Like even like a nugget that the DJ pulled out, they would have like the alternative mix, on a cassette tape or something. And they were just a wonderful crowd, and they were different than the usual crowd. And so that was the first of the Jackie themes that we said we should try this to do this again. There's something here. And it built up from there until when we got to about the fourth edition, then all of a sudden something was happening. And as the movie Gypsy 83 kind of spotlighted,
Yeah.
we started getting people driving from Sandusky, Ohio, and other places to be in the show. And especially some trans people from like Sioux City, Iowa, and stuff. And they would just road trip it because they didn't have money to like. I mean, it's so expensive to even stay in New York in a
Yeah.
hotel for the night, as I'm sure much of your audience knows. So they would just road trip it and pull up at the club at 7:30 at night or whatever, and then just ask if they could perform, and we would be auditioning them down in the basement. And one of them said, if I pay you, can I do a second number? And I'm like, you don't have to pay us to perform here. We're going to pay you. And they were just like blown away by that. So that's really that was the progression. by about the seventh or eighth edition, it was chock-a-block. There were like hundreds and hundreds of people showing up in a space that really only held, absolutely stuffed 500 people. So the numbers started getting like really big and a little scary for that space. But
Hmm.
we've always been loath to move it to any place that doesn't feel like a club. So we moved through the decades and the spaces kept getting a little bigger. An important one that was like the in between was the old knitting factory,
Yeah.
which was perfect because it was that one step up from Mother and Don Hills, which is where we went briefly when Mother closed. That was also too small. So Knitting Factory was transitional, and then we went to Highline Ballroom, which was bigger than that. And now we've been at Irving Plaza since 2014. That's really absolutely the right place in New York for this show. And uh, we had to do one right after COVID that wasn't there at another venue, and glad of it because all booking was such a nightmare at that time. But there's nothing like doing it at Irving Plaza because it's such a great old rock house. And so that whole like Stevie, like on tour thing is just there in the ether. And it looks beautiful. It looks, but not too, it doesn't look too fixed up or sterile. And the staff there really loves having the event. It's different than most of the shows that they do there, and the crowd is certainly different. So we feel very welcomed there, and I know that our audience loves it there too. So that's a big help.
That's
Wow.
awesome. But thank you so much for that story. Yes. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. We're talking a little bit more, but this will be my first time attending, even though I wanted to go for 20 years.
Right. This is
Uh,
this is our bucket list
yeah.
to be
Yeah,
there.
and I love being a bucket list for people. I love no, I really I consider that like such an honor. And the other thing that really really moves me is when we get people whose like a performer whose mother was also like performed Stevie, or
Oh,
yeah, when you
wow.
start getting this generational thing,
Yeah.
because you'll see at the show, we would get people under 18, but we don't want to like move that bar because we like to have content and experiences that are 18 and plus.
Right.
So it's if you really want to come and you're younger, you just have to have like a parent with you and stuff. Um, I forgot how I got in that, but that's what editing is for. Oh,
Well, we
so
see
you'll
that.
see people absolutely from 18 to 80, like all ages and genders, and a lot of genders that we're not sure of, but all in veils and top hats and good stuff.
You've kind of alluded to this in your response to Randy's question just now, but to me, there's a difference between someone doing Stevie Nicks material and someone understanding Stevie Nicks
Mhm.
material as they do it. So during a performance, what tells you instantly that a performer gets it? What's the nuance you see?
I would say ones who are in really deep tend to get the right language of Stevie's stage moves that goes with what they're doing, and into the weeds a little bit where they'll reference like a certain move from one version of Sisters of the Moon in 1978 or something, and exactly. And okay, this is, you've graduated. And then we also really, to be honest, I really enjoy the people. And there is one of the debuts this year is from a band who only formed like a year and a half ago, and it was only after the lead singer, who is already, quite a really good singer, as you'll see, went and saw Stevie live. And so it's like there's also room for that. And of course, she named she named the band Stevie's Blue Lamp and was like, I'm sure you know the story of Stevie's Blue Lamp. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
not only do I know it, but there also was another group called Blue Lamp, 15 years ago at the show. So it's like, it's great when people come to it without so much reference also.
Sure. I mean, absolutely. But so, talking about those debut performers, what what is the one piece of advice that you give to these newcomers that are coming onto the stage with these veteran performers and that maybe surprise you like Stevie's Blue Lamp did? What's some advice you give to someone stepping on the not stage for the first time?
Well, the number one piece of advice, and this has more to do with the era that we're in, but so many people are used to these small stages like I'm in right now,
Yeah.
and they tend to do everything as if they're shooting a video. So the stage of Irving Plaza is this big old stage with a big high ceiling, and you're playing to people that are all the way out in the balcony. So the number one thing is like be aware of how big the room is and don't retreat into your world inside your screen, reach out. And number two, as we tell everyone, no matter what else you do, you better give them at least one twirl.
Amen. Yes.
Spoilers for our audience, I will be, and I'm so thankful to you, Chi Chi, and the whole everyone who does that. I organizes knots. I will be performing one of my poems as part of this year's, and I'm going to make them beg for that twirl. That's my
Excellent. Yeah,
You
my
better
twirl
work
is
it.
already in my twirl spot is already baked into the opening
I
music
think
of
I
the show.
know.
It's like, and here you twirl. And it's like, and and I'm a bit of that stamp collector type also, as a good friend used to call
I'm going to
those
give them
sweet
a little
people.
stand back hands and some gypsy shoulders too. That's my plan.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So yeah, for like being a person that gets into the minutia a little bit. So this year, instead of sometimes I'll come out with like on my tambourine, there will be my crow, Russell, who also wears shawls and stuff. But this year, because of Moonlight, it's going to be Marius, who's like my owl, is coming back after a 12-year stint in our storage. So he's delighted. And then, then it's like my outfit's almost done, but like obviously we have to match. So that takes us a little bit into, I think one thing that people enjoy so much about knots is creating their own outfit and
Hmm.
doing and like this year, we're going to see a lot of like moon headdresses, kind of very female, like goddess looks. Definitely a lot of Sisters of the Moon, some Moonlight, some vampire referencing. So it's fun. We always do, and we'll be publishing about a month out from the show. We publish like suggested dress, which is a tradition that goes all the way back to Jackie, which is here's some tips if you're not sure what to wear, like an important moon necklace or Fleetwood, the dance cover looks for like uh, butch women or something like, we'll just put all of those suggestions out, and some are really easy, and some are like very deep, and you would have to know. So again, those give the person coming for the first time a really easy way in, like, bring a tambourine that you decorate, or, wear a Stevie tour shirt with some, important accessory, or everywhere to people who go so full on. And there is, a fabulous staircase. So there's lots of places to kind of show off those outfits. And if they're not finished or they want to add more once they get there, we have some incredible vendors who have been with the show a long time. There's a whole room with are kind of fairy witch side of things, and they are incredible. And they take over and they do everything from like casting spells for you to selling you, crystal jewelry, reading runes. And then right off the ballroom, then we have Gothic Renaissance, which is this wonderful long-running Gothic store here, who actually, when Kitty Boots did the styling for Gypsy 83, a lot of the clothing came from that store, and they're still
Oh,
there
really?
vending. And then all of our vending, instead of, them paying the club to vend there, they donate to local animal rescue, and we've raised like, tens of thousands of dollars for that. So, and it's
Yeah,
kind of like, what would Stevie
awesome.
do?
Oh,
Love it.
absolutely. Yeah. Well,
Can I go, Randy, or do you have one?
I've got one, but
Go ahead. Go ahead. You go.
just since we were talking about styling and things, and we just recently had done an episode all about Stevie's fashion through the ages. Do you have a favorite era of Stevie's that you kind of gravitate towards?
Ooh. I change a lot, but one thing that I absolutely will always adore is that really simple look with the black toe shoes, like the rock and roll ballerina with the black
Hmm.
chiffon and the old like Worthington photos. That I would say that's probably my all-time favorite. And because it's also something a lot of people don't realize that Stevie was actually committed to Russian ballet, which is a very difficult discipline, even within dance. So I love that. Um, but a lot of it, I might get into like a certain branch of Stevie style or a certain era of it for for the theme that we're doing. And one of my favorites recently to do wasn't that recent now, but we did Garbo. So we did all, the Hollywood songs and the old Hollywood feel and that morph, which she does really beautifully also of like 20s. And then
Hmm.
being kind of a Belle Fleur herself or a
Hmm.
canyon lady, she really gets that side of things. So I also really, really love that. And that's more almost like day wear.
It
In New
is.
Orleans
Run,
it is. Yeah.
yeah,
Right,
running to the
right.
supermarket to pick up peanut butter. Exactly, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so over the years, you have Night of a Thousand Stevies, you've seen everything, the divine, the unhinged, the accidental masterpiece that probably shouldn't have worked. What's one performance that still lives in your head?
Oh boy. Um, well, I think one of the greatest and unexpected performances was the great puppeteer Basil Twist created uh, this incredible Stevie puppet called Little Stevie. And he's, like a world famous, accomplished puppeteer. And he opened the show with Little Stevie doing Enchanted. And there's definitely video of that up.
I
And
saw
I'll
it
send
last
you the,
night.
oh,
I
okay.
saw it last night,
Oh
Randy.
my
I'll share
God.
it with you. It was
Yes, you
Yeah.
have.
amazing.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
because he's
that
a
is
genius. I mean, he did Symphony Fantastique and all kinds of projects all over the world. And he came to Jackie as, a teenager. And so he comes out of early Jackie, but then brought all of his puppeteer skill to that. So that's a special one. I would say some of the Butoh performance is very unusual, and I think people don't really expect this kind of post-nuclear Japanese art form with like bodies painted
yeah.
white, but then like Stevie wigs, but we kind of got the ones that were towards anime or so that's kind of a morph of Stevie with like Japanese culture and with dance virtuosity. So and that's usually, but not always included more as like the go-go. So it's not like as a performance segment, but they have done a few as straight out segments, and that's all. And the audience is always kind of like their jaws are dropping because they've never
Yeah.
seen that.
Yeah.
That said, some of the things, sometimes I feel like we always have to walk a line also, though, between people who are just brilliant vocalists who reimagine these songs vocally and not having it all be like, straying totally away from what Stevie is. So I like to kind of straddle that line. And so if you'll see a performance that's more edgy or makes you think a little bit outside the shawl, as it were, then the next one will just bring it back with somebody like who's the most brilliant vocalist, like Amber Martin, who's back this year, who's been touring with the Scissor Sisters, who is one of the great singers that you might see live at any club, let alone just like as a Stevie performer, but she's been touring with the Scissor Sisters. She lives in Beaumont, Texas and New Orleans and has a whole Janis Joplin connection with Port Arthur. And
Oh, yeah.
there's a strong Texas connection in general with not.
Texas
I
represent.
know. And you'll talk to Little Wing, Brooke
Mhm.
Allison, who's definitely, doing it for
Yeah.
Houston. So yeah, there's some very, very strong, incredible vocalists who are song stylists and completely reimagined. Last year, the great Bright Light, who's a wonderful Welsh transplant to New York, and again a beautiful, great song interpreter. And I especially love at the show when someone like that takes on one of the great ballads. And this
Mm.
year we have Bridget Barkin, who's another of just the best of our singers, doing Has Anyone Ever Written? And I'm really looking forward to that moment because yeah, that song anyway, there's so much heart to that song. And also that it's so valuable to Stevie because of where she always used to put it in her shows.
Right. And it's one of those songs that's such a through line to the entire fandom and everybody who, loves and respects Stevie and her work, that is always one of those important songs.
Yeah.
And so
I think Silver Springs is another one.
it
And
is.
so far, and our claiming of songs is almost over, but this may be the first year in like seven without a version of Silver Springs. And that's also fine because obviously somebody always wants to do Stand Back and somebody always wants to do Rhiannon, and certainly we love having those, but I'm always so happy uh, when people choose the more obscure songs
The
that are
deep
great
cuts.
songs.
Yeah.
And one of my
Well,
personal favorites, um, Fire Burning, which is the most
ah,
obscure song. We have
right.
never had anyone perform it in the show until we did. Last year, our theme was Dances of Rhiannon, and so we had a lot more dance pieces than we usually do. And so I found this incredible local Irish step dance, like river dance troupe, and the choreographer created this over the top step dance to Fire Burning. And you can see that we put all the segments up from past shows at our YouTube channel, which is Jackie Factory. And the Fire Burning is just, it's kind of transcended, and people from the Irish dance world have been coming on and loving it. And so there, obviously, we can't bring everyone back every year, but that
Sure.
number is coming back in the near future.
Oh, that's so exciting. But
So, just
but
spoilers for next year. Randy plans to do Mabel Normand. I'm just telling you.
Oh my God. Mabel Mabel Norman was like a way like a standing joke for years because It's like I would say that's going to be one of the hardest songs to deliver, but somebody
Right.
will find the right way to do it. I mean, that's the
Telling you, I'm
beauty of
manifesting
Stevie.
now,
Challenge
Mandy.
challenge accepted.
Okay, bring it
And
on.
And
Now it's
so
out
we should
there.
have done this earlier, but for everyone, and we're going to put this all over our comments and then and our in where we post the podcast. So it's Saturday, May 2nd at the Irving Plaza in New York City. Uh, Showtime is 9 p.m. Doors open 8 p.m. Your website is 1000stevies.com for more information. Is there anything else you'd like
Perfect.
everybody
No,
to know?
I think we just sold out of early bird tickets. So the ticket price we have worked to keep the same for the past 5 years. So it's still $50, which for the amount of talent that you're seeing is kind of unprecedented. And of course, we can't really do much about the ticket fees, which have nothing to do with us, but are
Sure.
on top of that. So that's the other thing that we always want. And I know even $50 is a stretch for some people, and I understand that, but it's not $80 or $100 or $200. And we try to keep it so that the people who should be there are able to be there.
Well, you do a really good job at that, and I know that the attendees every year appreciate it so much. So you've been doing this for 34 performances. What do you think is the secret for why this has endured for so long and what it represents to the people that keep coming back year after year?
Well, the Stevie Knots crowd, a lot of them being outsiders in certain parts of their lives. I think it's a place where they can be really free about who they are and how they see themselves and what they love. I think that's one part of it. And then it's grown into I was out at a lot of other events all weekend, and several people at different places just said, it's so important to me to come to Knott's because there's so few events that remind us of, what our creative past was. So it's like an unbroken chain, as it were, back to, the clubs that were even pre-Knots who are certainly represented. So we come out of a whole tradition of the Pyramid Club and Mud Club, Danceteria area, those New York City underground clubs. And so as a place that showcases a lot of talent from that scene and all generations of it, going back to, some performers who were with us to the 90s to some that are brand new. That's that keeps people connected to it who might not necessarily only be Stevie fans. They're actually Knots fans because it's such a singular experience. And I wish that there were more things like it in New York right now, but it's just so expensive to do this work here that I think people are stymied by that, even if they want to do things that are really big and complex. So we also live part of the year in New Orleans and do a version there. And in New Orleans in general, I feel like the tradition of clubs that we grew out of is so much better represented there than here now, because there people can still afford to live there and do creative work. It's not like it's costs nothing to live there, but it's there's still enough of a creative like ecosystem there where you're the person who makes your wigs lives next door, or you're just walking down the street and run into this performer that you've been wanting to book, stuff like that. And
Yeah.
New York can be like that, but New Orleans is more like that. And that's why doing a form of the show there, even if it's only, some years every 2 years, but it's great to to have that connection to our past.
Yeah. That sense of community used to exist, especially in the queer community in New York and Philly. It's sad, but I'm so happy you guys are keeping it alive with this show because there are so many kids growing up nowadays that they do connect to Stevie's music just like we did as youngsters, and they are drawn. And so I thank you so much for everything you do, Chi Chi. I really
Oh,
Yes,
you're
thank
so,
you.
thank
Really.
you. Thank you for what you do. I mean, it's all parts of just getting away from like the definition that's just like what is like commercial fandom into what is real enduring fandom. Um, somebody at I've been to so many things lately. Someone was telling me a story lately that they were from the record business, so they had worked with Stevie like in the 90s and worked with a lot of other acts. And they're like, when I say to my nieces and nephews, Stevie Nicks, everybody knows who she is. And they're like, I love her. But I can mention like Phil Collins, and they've never even heard of him.
right.
And so I'm like,
Yeah.
well, if he was as fierce as Stevie, I think, you know. So it's yeah, Stevie just really has that pull.
She absolutely does.
Any final words for our audience, Chi Chi?
Well, one thing I just wanted to let you know this year is that we're really going back to our club roots, and this is in response to a lot of feedback because we get a lot of feedback about the show, especially right after the edition, and we always, review it as we're starting to book for the next year. And the number one thing, because all events in New York, except ones that are like completely people, just tripping their brains out, um, everything else is ending like an hour earlier than it used to. And it's not even just New York, it's kind of everywhere. And it's shocking in New York because some nights, you know, darling, in the 80s, some nights we wouldn't go out till 2:30 a.m. Now the fact
Yeah.
that
Right.
the club is closing at 2:30 a.m., we can't deal. So,
Ah,
but so as that relates to knots, a lot of people, and I'm one of them, really missed that last late night dance set of people who have been through the whole night at Knott's. And Sammy Joe, who's brilliant, our DJ, always just plays like really from the heart. And it's really 45 minutes. But so this year, by doing two longer performance acts, so we'll have a little bit more time. And so right after the battle, we're featuring our late night dance set with extra, method go-go and everything. And it's called So You Think You Can Twirl. And I just invite you all out to twirl. I love my
Oh,
late night twirl. Bring a change of shoes if you must. Um,
I'm
Or
down.
just dance barefoot, sweetie. I mean, there's only,
I mean,
broken glass on the floor, no problem.
sure. Take
But
your
yeah,
life
Um,
into
that's
your own
that's a
hands.
really special night, and it's also when I get to say hi to a lot of the people that come every year. I mean, I
Hmm.
see them from stage, and you'll see the tambo toss. We'll throw tambos out to them and stuff, or I'll see somebody for a second. But at that point, all of us have just shared this experience that's once a year,
Hmm.
and it's a very special time. So join us for Knots, and please stick around for it. So You Think You Can Twirl. We'll still let you out by 1
because
a.m.
it'll be 1983 again for everybody
Yes.
there.
It will. It will.
And we're so excited that you'll be filming and that you're doing this herstory to let people know more, what we are, and also about the White Winged Doves poetry anthology. And the Gypsy 83 25th anniversary will also be doing a special celebration of that with Todd Stevens. So
Oh,
those are
wow.
the two kind of
Oh.
special things added in. So look how special you are.
Oh.
Thank you for saying that. I don't know about that, but thank you for it.
It's a beautiful poem, and I think our audience is really going to get it. So, with Stevie Love, I will just sign out if
That's it.
Thank you so much, Chi Chi. This has been amazing. And
Thank you.
again, Night of a Thousand Stevies is on May 2nd at Irving Plaza, and you can get your tickets at 1000stevies.com.
okay. We'll see you at the show.
All right. And until next time, Anthony.
We will see you all on the other side of the mirror.
Well, all right, said Alice.